Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my South American World Cup Qualifier Match Day 17 prediction video, where of course today I'm going to be giving you my predictions on which South American teams I think will qualify for the World Cup 2022. Now of course, if you've been watching my channel over the last few days, I have uploaded World Cup qualifier predictions for both African nations and European nations. You guys seem to be loving it, so it only makes sense that I do more of this kind of stuff and I try it out with the South Americans. Now of course it is match week 17 in the South American qualification, so we have 5 games to talk about in today's video. As you can see on screen right now, these are the 5 games we will be talking about. Colombia versus Bolivia, Paraguay versus Ecuador, Brazil versus Chile. I think that is a personal favorite of mine. I think it has potential to be really exciting, a bit spicy, and not just because it's got chili in it.
Stop it. Get some help.
Obviously, Uruguay versus Peru, and to end off match week 17, we've got Argentina versus Venezuela. Obviously, 5 big matches to talk about today. And of course, if you want me to do a prediction video on the final qualification week, match week 18, which has these games, as you can see on screen as well. If you do want me to do a prediction video on that, do leave a like down below. If we get this video to, let's say, 20-30 likes, I will end up doing that video. But of course, as I said, we've got 5 games to talk about. Now, of course, some teams have already qualified for the World Cup already. I mean, if we take a look at the table right here, I mean, I think the likes of Brazil and Argentina have already qualified. But for the rest, there are 1 or 2 teams that could still qualify. Ecuador are not safe yet. Uruguay, not safe yet. Obviously, the top 4 teams are the ones that will go to the World Cup. But obviously, Peru, Chile, teams like that still have a chance. Colombia might even be able to qualify as well. So you know what? We are leaving it to the last minute. And of course, it is always going to be exciting. But of course, jumping into the matches themselves, game number 1 we're going to be talking about is going to be Colombia versus Bolivia. Now of course, Colombia maybe not having the World Cup qualification start that they would be hoping for. Currently 7th place, obviously Bolivia 8th place. At least Bolivia have some pride here, knowing that maybe they could take over the likes of Colombia, but I have no idea what's happened to this Colombian national team. They've got some brilliant players. I don't think they were bad at all in the previous Copa America, but unfortunately they just haven't performed this time around. They've been very disappointing, but I still do believe that they can get the result versus Bolivia. I mean, Bolivia, I don't know if I believe here that they can beat Colombia.
You're joking. Not another one? Oh, for God's sake, I can't stand this.
Obviously have the worst defense out of all South American teams, have conceded 35 goals throughout the qualification process. I mean, things just aren't looking good for Bolivia. And although Colombia have been underperforming, I still think they can get a result. I think they could get maybe a 2-1 win. I do think Bolivia should be able to score. Obviously, the likes of Marcelo Moreno is the top goal scorer in the World Cup qualifiers. Obviously, has been brilliant, but unfortunately, the defense of Bolivia have let them down. You know what they say, you can't work away a bad diet. Well, you can't attack away a bad defense, if that makes sense. So you know what, I do think Colombia, although they have been underperforming, I do still think that they will get a result over Bolivia. And in terms of a player to watch, I mean, I'm not really doing players to watch for these videos, but obviously the likes of Luis Diaz, he was so brilliant in the Copa America. He's been so good for Liverpool so far this season, and I'd like to believe a player like him could make the difference. But as I said, Colombia as a whole, something has gone very wrong as of late. Jumping into the next game, we've got Paraguay versus Ecuador. Now, of course, looking at Paraguay, I mean, the worst attack out of all South American teams. Only 9 goals in their 16 qualification games. On the attacking mark, they just don't seem to be scoring. Obviously, 9th place, the second last team on the table. I mean, their hopes of qualifying are already gone, so it's just really pride that they're playing for. Obviously against the likes of Ecuador, who are currently 3rd place, who really look like they could qualify. At the moment, Ecuador definitely looking like the stronger team. I think on attacking fronts, they're not looking too bad. And I think a huge part to how Ecuador got to the stage, how they got to 3rd place on the table, is the fact that I don't feel like they lose silly games. And obviously when you don't lose silly games, whether it just be a point here that you pick up from a draw, it all ends up adding up at the end of the day. And I mean, to get a draw versus a team like Brazil, which lots of the smaller teams would have lost against, once again, huge points do add up at the end of the day. As you can see, obviously Ecuador trailing third place right here. They have been in really good form. Obviously only 5 losses out of 16 games. I mean, they thoroughly deserve to be here. I mean, heading into the qualifications, I might have expected Uruguay, Chile, even Colombia to be ahead of them. But yeah, all I can say is that they have definitely impressed me. And it's just a matter of not losing points where they're not necessary. I mean, if you've got the possibility to pick up a point versus a small team, you can't afford to lose it. And that's really where Ecuador has impressed me throughout this process. So as I said, looking at them versus Paraguay, who have been really bad in terms of both defense and attack, I think I do have to go for the likes of Ecuador, and I am going to give them, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. I think that they can get quite a comfortable win in this fixture. Jumping into our third game, as I said, my favorite game of this match week, we've got Brazil versus Chile. Now, of course, Brazil, they've already qualified for the competition. Obviously, they've gotten 0 losses in this qualification process. I mean, they've been absolutely brilliant. Obviously, 12 out of 15 wins. They got 3 draws. I mean, they've just looked absolutely marvelous. And I just keep thinking the amount of depth that is in this Brazilian national team. Obviously, Neymar has been reintroduced in the squad. He is back from injury. Obviously, in terms of goals and assists, I mean, he's amongst the top statistics in all of those. Yeah, as you can see, tied for second in terms of goals in the competition, in the qualifiers. He's first in terms of assists. He is a big player to have back in the team. And as I said, I genuinely think if Brazil had to play their third choice team, they would still qualify for the World Cup. I mean, looking at their goalkeepers, for example, at Edison and Alisson, they are both the two top runners in terms of winning the Golden Glove in the Premier League this season. Both Brazilian, both 16 clean sheets in the Premier League. If you think of their depth in terms of attacking opportunities, looking at the players who can play in the wing positions alone, you've got the likes of Everton, you've got the likes of Anthony, the young winger from Ajax, you've got Richarlison, you've got Neymar, you've got Coutinho, you've got Rafinha, the list goes on, Vinicius Jr. The amount of depth in this Brazilian squad in every single position, once again, it will carry through. Although they don't have to play their strongest squad for this game, which they probably won't, at the end of the day, I mean, even their third choice team, as I said, incredibly strong. But looking at them versus the likes of Chile, obviously Chile's 6th place in the table. I don't think they've had a bad qualification at all. I mean, they've been in relatively good form as of late, but it's just the fact that they had a very slow start. They had a very bad start to the qualifications, but as of late they haven't been in as bad form. Obviously the likes of Arturo Vidal will be returning from his suspension, but I do believe if Chile really want to push to qualify for this competition, this might be their last chance. Obviously they're kind of exiting the stage of their golden generation with players such as Alexis Sanchez, Arturo Vidal, Claudio Bravo, so you know what, their chance might be escaping them. But I do believe that Chile could stand a chance versus Brazil. Obviously, looking at Alexis Sanchez, he's been brilliant for Chile. He's been a huge part to why they've done so well at stages so far, the qualifications. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, versus Brazil, it's nothing personal versus Chile, but I think any team would have a tough time, and I do think Brazil should be able to take it, considering there are talks that Richarlison, Vinicius Jr. and Neymar will lead the attack versus them. I mean, I don't think many teams have too much hope versus them. Obviously, heading into our second final game, we've got Uruguay versus Peru. Now, of course, looking at Uruguay, they will be pushing to qualify for this competition. I definitely think they've got a strong enough team to qualify, but Peru are right on their tail. They can smell Uruguay at this stage. Obviously, Uruguay 4th place, Peru 5th place. Peru only 1 point behind Uruguay, but obviously looking at Uruguay overall, I mean, Muslera has returned from injury, obviously in the goalkeeper position. That is huge. I think the likes of Arioja, I can't pronounce the name, I'm sorry, that Barcelona centre-back, he has been on fire form in terms of attacking and defensive ability for Barcelona. As we know, that Cavani-Suarez attacking partnership up front, it is always insanely deadly. They've obviously got the likes of Valverde, they've got the likes of so many brilliant players, Bentancur. There are so many brilliant players in this Uruguayan team, and it's all a matter of can they perform well as a team. Obviously, they recently sacked their manager after 15 years in charge, but they've won their 2 international games since then in the World Cup qualifiers, proving that Uruguay still has what it takes. So the big question is, can they do it versus a very informed Peru? Obviously, looking at Peru at the moment, 6 games unbeaten in all competitions. It will not be an easy fight, but as I said, Uruguay, just looking at how many brilliant assets they have in their team, I do believe they should be able to do it. Let's see if they can manage it, but I do think that Uruguay will end up winning it. I'm going to go with a 3-1, to be honest with you. Now, obviously, I don't think I gave a score prediction for Brazil-Chile. I do think that that has potential to... I'm going to go for a 3-2. I think Brazil can win that one 3-2. But of course, that takes us to our final game, Argentina versus Venezuela. Now, of course, relatively easy game when you look at it on paper. Obviously, looking at Argentina, looking back 5 years ago to qualify for the previous World Cup. Let's not forget, Argentina only just made it on the skin of their teeth. On the final day of World Cup qualifications, Argentina just made it in. But that's not the case this time around. They are second place on the table. Looking at Argentina overall, in terms of attacking ability, in terms of defensive abilities, once again, 0 losses for them. Obviously, just overall, Argentina looking so strong this time around. Second place on the table versus 10th place Venezuela. You would like to think that Argentina has a really, really solid chance. Obviously, Venezuela only 10 goals for this competition, scoring-wise, not there. Defensively, 30 goals conceded. I do think that, I would love to say that there's going to be an underdog story here, but I do think Argentina will take it, and they should take it. I could say up to 4-0, to be honest with you. The amount of attacking depth and quality in this team, absolutely monstrous. In terms of defensive ability, Martinez, absolutely brilliant goalkeeper. On his day, impossible to get past. Looking at the midfield position, players have really stepped up, such as Lo Celso. Obviously gone out on loan from Tottenham Hotspurs. He's been brilliant in terms of assists. Looking at that kind of attacking partnership between Martinez and Lionel Messi. Once again, this Argentinian national team is looking so strong. I don't know whether I would say that they're better than Brazil at this point in time, or that they've got that much depth compared to Brazil, but all I can say is the amount of quality in this team, they should not lose to Venezuela, and I don't think that they will. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my match week 17 predictions for the South American qualifiers. As I said, if you want me to do the final match week 8, or 18, which I would release in the beginning of next week before it gets underway, do let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, let me know if you disagree with any of the predictions I made. I think I've done relatively well. I do think, obviously, I didn't predict any draws because I always find that relatively boring. But I do think that the likes of Colombia will get a win versus Bolivia, 2-1. I think I said I do think Ecuador will win. I do think Brazil will win. I do think Uruguay will win. And I do think Argentina will win. As I said, guys, I had a fun time doing this. If you're not subscribed, do subscribe down below. Don't forget to join the family. And of course, hit that like button down below if you want to see me predict the next match week. But guys, this has been Finn, FYNN. Until next time, cheers.